Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who is Sarah Colborne from the PSC.
It's okay, I'll sit down. Firstly, I think that the fact we're meeting today, 2 days before the commemoration of the Nakba, is very important. And I think it's a good time for us to look at an assessment of where we're at 63 years on and what we should focus on. And I think it's really important for us, although sometimes it feels like we've got a very long way to go to ensure that there is peace and justice for Palestine. It's very important to look at how far we've come. And I just wanted to cast people's minds back just to this time last year before the Mavi Mamara sailed. And what a difference events have made since then. I wanted to just mention 3 critical factors that I think are absolutely essential for the solidarity movement, that has built the solidarity movement to where it is today, and it's enabled Palestine to become the key solidarity issue of our time. The first and the most important is the Palestinian sumud, or steadfastness, because it wasn't for the Palestinians who have struggled for decades to raise their issues, their profile, and continue to fight for their right to return, we wouldn't be here today. Secondly, I'd like to mention Israeli atrocities, because each one horrifies and motivates increasing numbers of people. So we have the ongoing Nakba, which other speakers as well will talk about. We had Sabra and Shatila in 1982, we had Jenin in 2003, we had Lebanon in 2006, we had the war on Gaza in 2008, 2009, and those are just some of the many atrocities that take place on an ongoing basis. And the waves of support that have been generated after each of these atrocities are becoming tsunamis, where we are now in a situation that Palestine is becoming a mainstream issue. People are talking about Palestine in a way that they never have before, and they're acting in solidarity as never before. And thirdly, the last critical factor is the role of the international solidarity movement in raising awareness and building support for Palestinians. There's been, I think we'll all agree in this room, there's been a massive growth in international support and also concrete actions. If we look at the successes we've had around boycott, divestment and sanctions, for example, and the fact that the apartheid Israeli state is isolated as never before, we can all see the difference that a year, a decade and 63 years has made. But I also wanted to factor in the international issues like the role of the Turkish government, particularly after the Mavi Mamara, and the overthrow of Mubarak has made, because without that overthrow of Mubarak, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in today with the agreement between Hamas and Fatah, and obviously the statements from the new Egyptian foreign minister saying that the gates of Rafah will be opened. So, the role of the solidarity movement and the role of us all here is becoming increasingly important, and that's not me saying that, that's Israeli think tanks saying that, where they call boycott, divestment and sanctions an existential threat to Israel, and organisations such as the Palestine Solidarity Campaign are seen as a key hub of delegitimisation. And on this, I'd like to say that I think it is right to delegitimise occupation, it is right to delegitimise apartheid, and what Israel is trying to do is legitimise its crimes against the Palestinians, and I think that this is a sign of desperation that they're attacking the international solidarity movement in this way. And they're trying to explore tactics to move attention away from Israel's crimes and move away from the framework of human rights and justice, which is what we all believe in and what we're all working for. And what we've created, all of us in this room, and all of us a part of, is this big tent that threatens Israeli supporters so much. This big tent that involves anyone who supports peace and justice for Palestinians. And it's based on the principles of human rights and equality. So I just want to raise these issues because they may seem a little bit a tangent to what we're discussing tonight, but I think it's important that we recognise what challenges we face in the coming months and years. And because some of you will have experienced it in your colleges and others of you are yet to experience it. But there is an increasing attempt to sabotage the movement from pro-Israeli supporters. There's an increasing attempt to trying to cover up Israel's crimes by presenting it as so-called progressive, by trotting out old colonial arguments to justify its occupation, racism and apartheid. And I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact they're trying to rebrand themselves as this brand Israel as a bastion of liberalism, and they claim that they have a progressive agenda on women's rights, etc., in an attempt to try and justify the occupation, colonialism and apartheid that they carry out. Again, this may again be a bit of a tangent, but I want to raise it tonight because I think it's important, is the issue of pinkwashing that Israel is engaged in, which is the creation of a narrative of an Israel that is friendly to the LGBT community, surrounded by a hostile, homophobic Arab and Muslim nations, and nothing can be further from the truth. We know the crimes that Israel is committing. We know the crimes that Israel has committed to lesbian and gay Palestinians. And I think in that framework, decisions of increasing decisions of artists such as Mark Almond to refuse to play in Israel should be welcomed, and we should be encouraging far more cultural boycotts of Israel. So, just to make my final points, solidarity that we're all engaged in needs to be targeted, systematic and focused, and based on the demands of Palestinians themselves. Firstly, boycott is having a massive impact. I won't even go into all of the victories that have been won over the last year. But, for example, the Agrexco issue, where people are increasingly targeting Carmen Agrexco as a complicit firm and increasingly refusing to buy Israeli goods. The issue of the harbour, where their flagship shop has been closed, has been forced to move because the landlord is unable to continue its presence in Covent Garden. Then I want to just mention the flotilla, which, in my view, the Mavi Mamara and the Freedom Flotilla, the first Freedom Flotilla, made a large difference in the solidarity movement, and it proved that by acting together we can make a difference. It showed that the possibility of actions carried out by international supporters having generating a transformative effect, and we can all play a part in this, because what the flotilla did last year was by transforming the actions of a few hundred of us on the boat, we generated international pressure that involved tens of thousands of people in this country and millions of people around the world in pressure on their governments to ensure that the crimes that Israel was carrying out would not be ignored. The next flotilla is due to sail in June, and that flotilla will be sailing to Gaza. It will not stop until it gets to Gaza. It will be a peaceful flotilla, and we will be having, as Britain to Gaza, a presence there. Please do get involved by visiting the website Britain to Gaza. It is really important that the flotilla isn't just, as I said earlier, something that a few hundred or even 1,000, which we're looking at this time, will be participating. It's something that all of us can participate in. All of us can travel virtually to Gaza, and all of us can make sure that the pressure that we put on our governments mean that the flotilla reaches its destination safely. And obviously, 31st of May marks that one-year anniversary from the last flotilla and the attack that Israeli commandos launched on us sailing in the Mavi Mamara. And what we witnessed for 3 days, the violent and illegal attack that Israel carried out in international waters, the murder, the imprisonment and the brutality, is just a small dose of the grinding reality that is daily life for millions of Palestinians. So I want to basically ask you to go away this evening and just think about how we can expand and develop the solidarity work here. On Gaza, it is really important to continue the pressure on Gaza. That's the reason why we have the protest tomorrow at 12 o'clock outside Downing Street, opposite Downing Street. Because when, and I say when rather than if, when the borders of Gaza open, when the siege ends, when there's freedom of movement for people and goods, that won't impact of breaking the siege won't stop at the gates of Gaza. We have to recognise the interconnectedness of all of the actions we carry out on Palestine, because ending the siege on Gaza will have a positive impact on ending the occupation in total and bringing forward the day when Palestinian refugees can return to a free Palestine. I would like you to visit the PSE store at the back, look at the merchandise. We are giving away badges tonight against my better my better judgment. But so if you can give a donation to the cost of the badges, that would be brilliant. But we really want to make sure that that we together can build the solidarity movement that is necessary to bring down apartheid in Israel. And PSC's got 40 branches around the country, and we would really like everyone here to play an active role. We've got another special offer. If you join today, you can get Ben White's book free, so please do think about that. And just as anti-apartheid movement brought down South African apartheid, we have the need and the responsibility to end apartheid in Israel, and we have the possibility to do that. We really have that in our hands. We can all play a role in that. So at the risk of sounding like I'm selling loads of other events to you, I have been asked to sell another event to you, which is on Monday the 23rd of May, which is on media bias. And I think this is really important, particularly given the fact that there'll be students from Hisham and other students from King's here that are working on the issue around their lecturers visiting Israel. And also the other issue of media bias that I wanted to raise was Mike Righteous, whose performance was sabotaged by the BBC when he tried to say, I can say free Palestine. He clearly couldn't on the BBC. They decided to blank out the words Palestine. We really need to make sure that the BBC is deluged with complaints every time there is an issue of media bias. And unless and until we build that movement and we build that unstoppable momentum, the BBC will be able to get away with that. But I really do think that we are on the verge of building that mass movement. We're on the verge of making history. We're on the verge of free Palestine. And we're on the verge of the day that we can see when Palestinian refugees will return to a free Palestine. Thank you.